Night pressed against the tavern windows like a living thing, its breath fogging the glass as lantern light struggled to keep the darkness at bay. Lyria moved between tables with her usual quiet grace. But something in the air felt wrong, thicker, colder. As if shadows gathered with purpose, she felt him before she saw Ndot at a corner table. Half sunk in gloom, the nobleman sat with the stillness of a carved statue. No one else seemed to notice how the candle beside him guttered sideways, pulled toward him as though he bent the very air. Lyria's pulse whispered unease through her ribs. Travelers of all kinds passed through these doors, but none ever made the room hold its breath. She set a mug on a nearby table, yet her eyes kept drifting back. His posture was effortless, elegant, but coiled as if hiding centuries behind a single mortal gesture. When he reached for his cloak, the collar slipped just enough for the impossible to reveal itself, a faint glow beneath pale skin, crimson, pulsing. Lyria froze at the mark. She had heard of it only in frightened murmurs from old hunters who drank, themselves numb, an omen etched by ancient magic, signifying a target claimed by the blood hunters. Once marked, death was certain. No one survived their pursuit. Her throat tightened. Instinct urged her to flee, to look away, to pretend she hadn't seen. But something deeper, something she couldn't name, held her there. A pull, silent and magnetic, rooting her to the wooden floorboards. His head lifted, eyes dark as a winter eclipse locked on hers, sound drained from the tavern. The laughter, the clatter, the distant storm all seemed to fall away. Only his gaze remained, steady and unreadable, as though tracing the shape of her fear. And something else, the glow beneath his collar flared. Brighter than before, brightening because of her. Lyria's breath hitched, cold and sharp, as the crimson light throbbed once more, answering her presence like a heartbeat not his own. Asterisk. The night tore open with a sound like bones snapping, an echoing crash just beyond the tavern door. Every lantern flickered at once. The laughter, the muttered complaints, the clinking mugs, all stuttered into silence. Mist rolled past the threshold, cold and deliberate, as if ushered in by unseen hands. Lyria's heartbeat stumbled. Shadows glided through the fog outside, too swift, too smooth to be human. Hunters, their presence pressed against her skin like the edges of unseen blades. The nobleman must have felt it too, because he rose with a quiet grace that belied the violence about to break upon them. Tension rippled through the air. Sharp enough to taste, he did not look surprised. If anything, his expression carried a strange calm, the solemn acceptance of someone long used to standing in death's path. His cloak slipped back from his shoulders. Beneath it, the sigil shimmered with a steady, damning glow. Lyria's breath fogged in the chill that followed him. Her voice trembled before she could gather it. "They're coming for you," she whispered. He turned to her, eyes dark, fathomless, ancient. The weight in them struck her like a hand pressed to her chest. Confusion flickered through his gaze, subtle but unmistakable. "You can see it?" His voice was low, quiet thunder. Not disbelief, impossibility. She swallowed hard. Mortals weren't meant to see such marks. She knew that. And yet she had seen it as clearly as flame in night. Before he could speak again, the tavern windows exploded inward. Glass rained like frozen stars. Wind howled through the room. A hunter surged from the shards and smoke, a silhouette shaped from nightmare robes trailing like torn wings, blades gleaming with the cold promise of death. Screams erupted behind her, chairs scraping across the floor. But the world narrowed to a single instant of terror. The creature lunged. Lyria flinched, but the nobleman moved faster than sight, stepping between her and the incoming blade, cloak snapping in the sudden storm of force as darkness gathered around him, ready to strike back. Asterisk. The hunter's blade cut the air with a hiss, then stopped short. Caught in a blur of motion so swift Lyria barely saw the man move. One heartbeat he stood before her, the next he was a streak of shadow and steel, gripping the assassin's wrists with an elegance that made the violence almost graceful. The tavern erupted into chaos behind them, but everything close to her fell into a strange, suspended clarity. The nobleman's strength was impossible. He twisted the hunter's arm with quiet precision, sending the creature skidding across the floorboards, cloak trailing like torn smoke. Moonlight spilled through the shattered windows, catching his features, and in that pale glow, she saw the truth. Fangs, sharp, gleaming, unmistakably real. Lyria's breath caught, the world flashing cold. She had warned a vampire stood inches from one and somehow still breathed. He didn't look at her, didn't spare a second of distraction. His body remained angled just enough to shield her, as if some ancient instinct had already claimed her safety as his responsibility. The tavern's lanterns trembled, their flames bending toward him like obedient servants as he moved. The hunter rose again, robes dripping with shadow. Its voice came as a rasping whisper, threaded with prophecy. Your Majesty, the mark binds your fate. You cannot outrun what comes. Your Majesty. The words struck Lyria harder than any blade. Wine-stained aprons, splintered tables, frightened patrons, none of it fit with the reality that stood before her. She had been serving drinks to the vampire king himself. The hunter vanished into the mist outside, leaving only broken glass and the echo of its warning behind. Silence fell slowly. Like dust. The nobleman turned at last, eyes fixed on her with unnerving focus. The sigil beneath his collar still pulsed brighter near her. How? He asked softly. Did you see the mark? The tavern lingered in a bruised hush, lantern light trembling over the ruins of shattered glass. Valina's name, whispered by fleeing patrons, stood unnervingly still, the storm outside echoing the quiet tempest gathering in his gaze. When he looked at Lyria, it was with a depth that pressed against her ribs, as if he could sift through her thoughts without touching her. Her voice wavered before she managed to steady it. I don't know how I saw it. I just always have. Marks like that. On dying animals. On people who passed a day later. I thought I was imagining things. Valen stepped closer, shadow brushing against her like a cold exhale. His eyes held a sharp, searching hunger not for blood but for truth. The sigil beneath his collar glowed once faintly, as though responding to their nearness. Only those tied to the old bloodlines can perceive hunter sigils. He said, voice low, rich with centuries. It is a gift reserved for families long thought extinct. The words slid into her like a blade wrapped in silk. I'm not anything, Lyria whispered. Just a tavern girl, no. His tone softened, but the refusal in it was absolute. If you saw the mark, something in you has awakened or survived. Her breath stuttered. Something old stirred at the edges of memory. A woman's desperate voice. Moonlight on rushing rivers, a small hand clutching hers, then darkness. All of it gone before she could reach for more. Lyria shook her head as though to scatter the fragments. You're wrong. Valen's gaze deepened, a darker gravity settling behind it. I have lived long enough to recognize truth, even when mortals fear it. Outside, the night thickened. Soft footsteps, not human, shifted in the mist. The tavern's broken windows framed silhouettes gathering, their shapes thin and patient like predators circling a trapped heartbeat. Valen sensed them the same instant she did. Something cold and merciless flowed into his posture. He turned back to her, voice barely above a growl. If you remain here, you will die before dawn. Her pulse hammered, then quiet, decisive. Come with me, Lyria. It is the only way you survive what hunts us both. Night swallowed the tavern behind them as Valen pulled Lyria into the forest, their footsteps swallowed by damp earth and curling fog. The trees rose like dark pillars, branches clawing at the sky. And the wind carried the metallic tang of approaching death. Valen lifted a hand, and the mist obeyed, folding inward, thickening until the world became a shifting labyrinth of pale smoke. The forest disappeared behind a curtain of his making. Even knowing he was a creature feared in legends, Lyria felt no instinct to recoil. Instead, a strange warmth pulsed at the edge of her awareness. Tethering her to him, every step seemed to draw them closer in ways she couldn't understand. Her breath synced to his pace. Her heartbeat quickened when his did. It felt as if an unseen thread stretched between them, tightening with distance, humming now with a sharp, undeniable pull. Valen noticed. His jaw tensed as he glanced over his shoulder. Amber-shadowed eyes flicking to where her hand clutched the edge of his cloak. The bond grows stronger when you're near, he murmured, almost to himself. I do not like what this implies. Lyria swallowed hard. What bond? He slowed just enough for his voice to darken. The mark on my chest is not simply a hunter's claim. It is a pre-kill curse woven into fate meant to anchor my death to a single moment. A single weakness. His fingers brushed the spot beneath his collar, and the faint glow bled through the fabric like a heartbeat trying to break free. If you can see it, then you may be its counterweight. Or its trigger. A cold shiver crawled up her spine. You think I'm connected to your death? I think, he said quietly, that destiny has set its sights on both of us. The forest stilled, then a low, hollow note rolled through the trees, a hunter's horn, mournful and merciless. The sound stretched the darkness tighter around them. As if the night itself were hunting, Valen's head snapped toward the sound, gaze sharpening to a predator's edge dot in the distance. Pale shapes slipped between the trees, paused silent over the moss. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light hunter-forged spectral wolves, born of curse and moonlight. Noses lifted to catch their scent. The tether between Lyria and Valen pulled taut. They've unleashed the trackers. He murmured "Da," and the first wolf stepped into their path, its growl vibrating through the cold air. Asterisk mist coiled thick around their ankles as they ran, spectral growls echoing between the trees. Then, without warning, Valen staggered. His breath hitched, sharp and pained, and he fell to one knee among the thorns. The sigil beneath his collar erupted in crimson fire. Lyria spun toward him just as he braced a hand against the earth. Teeth clenched, shadows trembling around his body. The mark's glow bled through his skin in violent pulses, each one stealing strength from his limbs. He looked breakable. A word she never thought could fit a king of monsters. Valen, she reached for him, uncertain, terrified. Stay back, he hissed, though the command shivered with weakness. The curse. It feeds when death draws near. A wolf's howl cut through the forest. Lyria didn't think. Instinct, something old, something buried, surged through her. She pressed her palm to his chest. Directly over the burning SIG Isle light seared her vision, but the glow dimmed. Valen's breath caught. His hand flew to her wrist, gripping hard, not to push her away but in sheer disbelief. The air around them shifted, charged like a storm trapped beneath skin. His gaze lifted to hers, wide, shaken for the first time. You? Soothed it, he whispered. No mortal can touch a death sigil without being consumed. Her heart pounded, frantic and bewildered. I just wanted to stop the pain. You did more than that. His voice dropped, low as thunder. By placing your hand there, you've created an essence link. Even among my kind, such bonds are rare. Dangerous. His fingers trembled where they held her. It ties our energies. Our fates. If the bond deepens, there may be no severing it. Her hand shook. Every instinct screamed to pull away, but she didn't. She held firm, feeling the warmth beneath his cold skin. Feeling the curse react to her touch like a living thing recognizing a forgotten command. Lyria. Valen warned, softer now, almost pleading. You don't know what this will cost you. I don't care, she whispered, for a heartbeat. The forest itself seemed to pause. Then the sigil flared wild. Blinding, surging violently beneath her palm as if awakening to a truth neither of them was ready to face. Asterisk the run through the forest blurred into a fevered haze. The sigil's afterglow still pulsing beneath Lyria's skin. Valen guided her through shadows that parted at his command, until the trees thinned and the night opened into a clearing carved from ages long forgotten. Before them rose the crimson sanctuary. A ruined temple, its pillars cracked and veined with crimson moss, its archways humming with dormant power. Moonlight spilled through fractured stone, catching on symbols etched by ancient hands. The air vibrated alive, listening. Valen stepped inside first. Even weakened, his presence stirred the magic like wind over embers. This place is shielded from mortal eyes, he said. And from hunters. For a time. Lyria followed, breath trembling in the cold air. The sanctuary felt strangely familiar, though she had never seen it. The flicker of memory teased her again, water over stone, a woman's voice calling her name. Valen turned, frustration sharpening his features. You must know something of your bloodline. No human sees death marks. No human calms the sigil meant to kill kings. I don't know, she shot back, voice cracking. I've spent my whole life pretending I'm normal so people don't call me cursed. He stepped closer, shadows shifting around him like wings. Your essence responded to mine. That is impossible unless what? Lyria's fear finally surged past her restraint. Unless I'm some prophecy you didn't ask for? Some tool meant to save or kill you? I'm already being hunted just for breathing in your direction." The accusation struck something deep in him. His expression faltered, softened, revealing a loneliness woven into centuries. "I never wished danger upon you," he murmured. "But I cannot ignore what you are. What we are becoming." Silence stretched between them, but it was gentler now, warmed by their shared unsteadiness. Valen reached toward her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the cold halo of his magic. "Your heartbeat," he said. "Listen." She did. And the sigil beneath his collar answered, throbbing in perfect time with her pulse. Lyria's breath hitched. "It's sinking." "Bonding," he corrected, voice barely a whisper. "You are becoming the key to my fate." Before either could speak again, the sanctuary's outer wards shuddered. A distant crack split the airwood, spellwork or bone, she couldn't tell. The forest barrier groaned as shadows pushed through. Valen's eyes lifted, darkening like a storm. "They found us." Shadows thickened at the forest's edge, coiling like living smoke, and a figure stepped forward, a hunter captain, his armor black as obsidian, eyes glinting with cold calculation. Even through the mist, Lyria felt the weight of his intent. "Lyria Corvain," he intoned, voice slicing through the night. Her stomach clenched. That name. A relic she had buried deep, a fragment of a past she barely remembered. Her head snapped up. "How do you know?" "Your bloodline," he said, cutting her off. "The Corvains forged the death mark centuries ago, binding them to those they deemed threats to our kind. And you are the last of your line. The only one who can awaken the sigil fully. To kill him." His gaze flicked to Valen, then back to her. "The Vampire King dies the moment you choose to wield it." A shiver ran through her. The forest seemed to lean in closer, listening. Her pulse raced not just from fear, but from the bond she felt tightening around her chest, a tether to the man beside her. Valen stepped forward, his presence immense. Though the sigil beneath his collar throbbed violently. Draining him even now. "I will not let you touch her," he said, voice low, a growl rolling beneath it. Shadows gathered around him like armor. "Even if it kills me." Lyria's hands trembled at her sides. Torn between the legacy of her bloodline and the inexplicable pull toward Valen, the one who had shielded her, trusted her, allowed her touch to ease the curse searing through him. Her mind screamed, her heart cried, and yet her lips whispered the truth she couldn't ignore. I won't do it," she said, firm despite the quaver. "I refuse. I won't activate the sigil." The captain's eyes narrowed, an expression of fury tempered with cold calculation. He took a step closer, fingers curling over the hilt of his blade. "Then you will come with me, alive or not at all." The mist swirled around them, the spectral wolves lingering at the edges of the clearing, sensing the tension, waiting for orders. Valen's hand brushed her shoulder, a subtle, possessive anchor, and she felt the pulse of their bond sharpen. A thread of warmth in the freezing darkness. The captain's voice cut through the charged silence like a knife. "Bind her. She is as dangerous as the king himself." And with that, the hunters advanced, silent and inexorable, determined to seize the girl who carried the fate of a king in her blood. The forest became a tempest of steel, shadows, and fire. Hunters struck from every angle, blades gleaming like cold lightning. But Valen moved with relentless precision, even as the sigil beneath his collar flared, draining him with every heartbeat. His movements were graceful, but each strike seemed to cost him more. His inhuman strength strained by the curse that seared his chest. Lyria's heart pounded. Sparks of her own ancient magic leapt from her fingertips. Instinctive and uncontrolled, deflecting attacks, redirecting energy, shielding them both. She realized with a shock and clarity that her lineage's power was not solely meant to kill. It could also unravel the dark bindings hunters had laid. A hunter surged through the mist, blade aimed at Valen's heart. He didn't have time to dodge. The cursed sigil flared violently, as if sensing his vulnerability. Pain lanced through him. His chest arched in agony, fangs bared in a low, guttural sound. "No!" Lyria cried. Without hesitation, she threw herself over him, pressing her palms directly to the burning sigil. Fire lanced up her arms, pain twisting through every nerve, yet she held on, letting her magic pour into the cursed mark. Life force and bloodline power collided within her, raw and unrefined. As the sigil writhed and shrieked beneath her touch, Valen's hand found hers, trembling, gripping weakly not to push her away, but to anchor her in the storm of energy. Lyria, it's too strong. I won't let it kill you, she shouted, grit and fear driving her through the agony. Crimson light exploded outward, the sigil lashing, convulsing, and then, in a single shattering pulse, it broke. Silence crashed into the forest, leaving only the scent of burnt magic and wet earth. Lyria sagged against him, vision swimming, limbs heavy and unsteady. Pain and exhaustion burned through her like wildfire. Her heartbeat still echoed faintly against the ghost of the bond. A fragile, pulsing thread, and then darkness claimed her, leaving only the soft thrum of life between them and the knowledge that they had survived. Together at a cost she could barely comprehend, asterisk warmth pressed against her skin. Lyria's eyes fluttered open to a world still heavy with mist and the scent of forest rain, but softer somehow, quieter. She was in Valen's arms, his cloak wrapped around her like a shield, steady heartbeats beneath her ear grounding her to reality. The fire of the sigil no longer burned him. The curse was gone. She drew in a shaky breath, the ache in her limbs fading as she realized she was alive. And so was he, truly alive, unbound from the fate that had haunted him for centuries. His amber-shadowed eyes held her in a gaze so intimate it stole her breath. You, he murmured, voice low, roughened by pain and awe. When you chose to save me instead of obey the bloodline. You rewrote it. You rewrote the bond itself. Her chest tightened. Fear, relief, and something tenderly foreign, the hum of longing, flooded her at once. I didn't know what else to do. He smiled faintly, the shadowed edges of his face softening. And yet, that choice freed us both. The faintest flicker of the old sigil's glow lingered in memory only, leaving no trace but the pulse of their intertwined essences. The forest seemed to hold its breath. A low, retreating cry echoed through the trees. The hunters were withdrawing, their dark presence sensing the broken curse. The rise of something new, unmeasurable, and dangerous. Lyria's hand drifted to the place on his chest where the sigil had once burned. Nothing remained but warmth and the lingering hum of fate bending toward them. Valen leaned closer, his gaze intense yet soft, and whispered, I will protect you, Lyria. Always will you stay by my side? The weight of centuries pressed against them. The night wrapped around the sanctuary of their victory, and she felt a strange, exhilarating certainty. This was not the bond of hunters or curses, it was theirs. Unwritten, unpredictable, and theirs alone. Her fingers brushed the empty space where fire had once seared him, and she felt destiny shift, bending toward them both. A future no longer dictated by blood or curse, but by the choice of hearts daring to defy it. Her lips trembled into a smile as she whispered back, almost to herself, almost to him, yes. And in the stillness of the forest, life and love surged together, powerful enough to rewrite even fate itself.